Humans of New York by show of hands, okay? We have a few people. So Humans of New York right now is curated by a photographer called Brandon, and he is currently covering the refugee crisis in Europe. The refugee crisis in Europe is the largest exodus of or migration of human beings since World War II. And at the moment, Brandon is covering individual stories of people who are going from Turkey to Greece. So you have Syrian refugees who are fleeing poverty and fleeing war, and they go to Turkey, but to get from Turkey to Greece, where they will then find a safe haven into the rest of Europe, they need to get on a boat. And so right now you find these plastic boats have become synonymous with the refugee crisis. So you have entire families, mom, dad, kids, and they will pay a smuggler 1,500 euros to get them from Turkey to Greece. Now, even though you've paid 1,500 euros, you are not being given royal treatment. They will get the families and they will stuff them in boats that are 4 times over capacity, put a life jacket on, and then at night they will leave from Turkey and try to get to Greece. And a lot of the times, if there is a storm, the smugglers will jump out, tip their cap, and it's good luck to you. When these refugees arrive in Greece, they don't find much there. If they're lucky, there will be a welcome party of 1 or 2 people with some water bottles and some bread to give to them. Many of these people arrive with horror stories, just complete horror stories. You have little girls who are scared to tell people who their parents are because experience has told them, telling them who your family members are may mean your family members disappear and you never see them again. One particular story that I was reading was of a family that landed in a place in Greece called Lesbos. So they arrived there after having been on a plastic boat overnight. They disembark and they realize that the nearest place they can get help is 50 miles away, where you have maybe a UN health agency or an NGO that has set up to help these refugees. And they start to walk, and they hope they can make it. But as soon as they arrive, they realize that to go from Lesbos, Greece, to a safe haven, to go to Austria or to go to Germany, means getting off the island, and they don't even have enough money to take the ferry. And so you have this entire group of people, desperate, disenfranchised, and without hope. And as I read this story on Honey's website, on his Facebook website, it made me think about another group of people thousands of years ago. Scholars think maybe around 1446 BC. And this group of refugees also had to make a huge trek from the northeast corner of Africa to the western shores of Asia bordering the Mediterranean. So you have a huge group of people, desperate, disenfranchised, and without hope. These people had suffered, just like the Syrian refugees, under the iron fist of a mighty empire. They had been the cogs in the wheel of a complex military power. In fact, they had been slaves for 400 years. And they find themselves running, undocumented, and looking for a new home. And yet these people that we normally would describe as the children of Israel, coming from the oppressive hand of Pharaoh, enter the desert and God asked them to do something strange. God asked them to do something that if I were God, and it's an excellent thing, I am not God, or that you are God, but God asked them to do something really strange, counterintuitive, when they get out of slavery. So if you're joining us for the first time, we are doing part 2 of a series on stewardship. Last week we spoke about how God has a claim on our life and wants us to steward everything we have, our time, our talents, our histories, our character, our relationship. God wants us to steward everything. We spoke about stewardship in the Christian life being like a fruit. This is your second chance, Volunteer Park. Like a fruit. And what fruit did we make Christian stewardship akin to? A mango. That's right. We said being a Christian is not like an orange where you live a segmented and compartmentalized life, where on Monday you are this, on Tuesday you are this, and then as the sun sets on Friday and touches the horizon, you have a Jekyll and Hyde experience and miraculously become a good-looking, fresh-smelling, Old Spice. I was going to go with, Big Frank eating Adventist. No, but you are living a life like a mango where Christ is the center of everything. And out of that center, all your decisions, all your actions bear good, juicy fruit. So like a mango, we learned that last week. And this week, as we talk about stewardship, we are going to move into sacred territory. We are going to move into what God has to say about your wallet. I hear a and I hear laughter. I'm not sure what to make of the or the laughter. But we are going to talk about what God says in the Bible when it comes to stewardship of our finances. And so, a few words on stewardship before we jump into our text. Stewardship is about us being managers and God being the owner. We are managers and God is the owner. God is the one that gifts us with the ability to have the strength and the intellect to be able to work and to be able to earn a good living. God is the owner and we are the managers. Now, the Bible, rightly interpreted, is good news for our entire society. I think you'd agree. Human rights, public policy, education. The Bible has something to say about all of these things. And rightly interpreted, it's good news. And for those of you who might be skeptical about why in the world this dude is about to talk about money and God's claim on my wallet, just know that the Bible and God has good news for your wallet and good news for your finances. Money is an incredible tool that can be used to help people. We have the Gates Foundation down there in Westlake. Millions of dollars, billions, the endowment is huge. And they use it to go around the world to find cures for diseases, to help empower women in microfinancing, to go to global South countries that just need a push so that they can begin to flourish. Money is a potent weapon for good. And money is what enables us as Volunteer Park to be able to exist and to do good. Your money is what allowed us last week, to see the birth of two people in baptism. You saw the stories that Jason and Joseph gave of how God worked in their life. And it was because of your financial support that those stories were able to happen. And it's because of your financial support that Bible studies continue to happen and people are brought into a saving and flourishing relationship with God. Your money, your wallet. But money can also be a severe and oppressive tyrant. Rent and mortgage payments are due every month. Taxes are due every year, whether you're ready or not. Yeah, I see lots of heads nodding for that one. Many of us have credit cards, and depending on how we use it, we may be experiencing phone calls from A, B, and C collection company asking us when we are going to make a payment on that overdue bill. Money, like a philosopher who was a rapper once said, cash rules everything around me. You know he said that, Andrew. Money is central to our life. Would you agree? Would you agree with what I'm saying so far? Okay, you agree. Now, we're going to go back to our group of Israelites who, just like these refugees, have come out of a desperate situation. And what God asked them to do is totally counterintuitive. Desperate situation. Slaves for 400 years. Left Egypt with the clothes on their back and whatever the donkey could carry. And what does God tell them? Are you ready? God starts to give them rules. And when you look at some of these rules, they don't really seem to make sense. God, why do you take people who are in slavery and then give them rules? Are you not giving them more rules and almost putting them back in slavery? Shouldn't you just tell them that they are now in a place where it's like a theme park where you have a card that has unlimited credit, everything has been paid for, knock yourself out? But God starts to give them rules. Let me read some of these rules to you, because some of them are about money. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22. So this is what God says. You shall truly tithe all the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year. Another one, Exodus 23 and verse 19. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of your God. Now, I'm asking this question, and you might ask this question, God, why are you trying to take 10% from a group of people who are flat broke? If you come here more than once, you will realize this happens almost every single time I speak. It's this incredible, you can count within 5 minutes of me speaking, and I've already drank about a gallon of water before I started speaking. And if you've heard me speak before, you know this happens every time. So excuse me. All right, so God is coming to this group of slaves, and he says, you should give me 10% from the wealth of your fields, from your groves, from your vineyards. As soon as you get it, give it to me. And I'm going to try and pull some things out about why God might ask people who would already be in the bottom 5% of income earners to give what they don't even seem to have. And I think the reason God does this, Volunteer Park, is God wants to communicate some significant lessons about money and resources. You see, every time you come and, putting money in these tithe envelopes, I used to do this as a student. I could fit all my money in here when I was a student, when I gave tithe. I could fit all of it in, and I would painfully do it, counting it down by how many meals that was going to account for. I would put it in here. And then you get a full-time job. You start to feel a little comfortable. Most of you cannot fit your 10% in this envelope. Be honest. Unless you're going to be putting Benjamins in here, it's not going to work. But imagine this. Every single time you harvest your grain, you take everything you have and you take it to the temple. You look at your fruits, your grains, your wheat, and you truck it to God and you give it as an offering. As you are doing that, you are subconsciously affirming the truth that God is in charge. God is the one who gave you the sunshine for the seed to grow and for the seed to come to harvest. God is the one that somehow fills these little baubles with juice and they become grapes. You don't go and inject them every single day. God is the one who helps your animals grow and be healthy. And so every single time you go and give to God, you are saying, you know what? I actually didn't make any of this happen. I don't have a lab in which I'm able to make these produce. And so you give to God. And in fact, you realize that God is asking you not to give, but to return what is 100% His. God says, guys, I own everything anyway, and I'm going to be so generous that you can keep 90%. Just return 10. You can keep 90%. Take it. And every time you give, it also confirms to you that you are wealthy, because only wealthy people can give. You cannot give what you don't have. And so every time you give, you recognize and start to appropriate a sense of wealth without even knowing it. And I know it's difficult if you haven't grown up thinking that God should have any influence on how you spend to really digest this message. But I was thinking about it the other day as the little human in my house was eating some fish crackers. You hear about fish crackers quite a lot. So many spiritual lessons can be learned from fishy crackers, okay? So one day she has her fishy crackers, and I ask if I can have one of her fishy crackers. And generally, she's quite a generous person. But on this occasion, you know what I'm going to say. She almost judo chopped me in the throat to make sure that she could have every single last one of her fish crackers. Now, let's back up here. How did those fish crackers get in your cup? Who got in the car and went to Fred Meyer's in Ballard and bought you those fish crackers? Who then gave you those fish crackers to eat when you asked? And I'm asking for one of your fish crackers, and you're gonna judo chop me in the throat. I'm telling you, 2-year-olds are very strong. And that is the kind of image that sometimes I have when it comes to, when I struggle, or when you move from being a student, not that you have an out if you're a student, but when you get to a stage where you think, you know what, I am in a position now to return what is 100% of God, return 10% to him. And it comes down to having trust in the fact that God gave it to you and asked you for it, not because he needs it, not because God is in heaven and is somehow taking all your money and turning it into celestial dollars with the angels and just like making it rain. You know, like, hey, God is just having a party with your money. No, God is doing it to cultivate and to form a character of generosity within you. God is doing it so that money is not your master, but money is your tool. God wants you to have a life where you are so generous that when needs come up, you are not ruled by your money, but you use it well. You use it to build the kingdom. You use it to impact lives. And the Adventist church for years has really tried to figure out what's the best way what's the best system for us to have so that we can make the most impact in our society and in our community? You know, the Adventist church did not always believe in tithing, but we realized, and it has been shown, studies have shown that people who tithe, for the most part, always do better financially. And I'm not going to do the Creflo Dollar, like, you know, plant a seed and God is going to give you a Lamborghini. You know, like, if you give us $10, you're miraculously going to get $1,000 in your bank account. No, that's not what the Bible says. And yet, the Bible challenges us in Malachi and says, prove me now. And that's a strange thing for God to be saying to a group of people who have been slaves for 400 years, have no wealth, have no 401k, have no endowment, have no trust fund. God is like, guys, prove me with your giving and see if I will not bless you. And some of you, without even me speaking about money, have actually told me about how God has blessed your life as you intentionally control your money and not let money control you. And you decide around the kitchen table that you are going to give to the work of God, how you have seen God paradoxically bless you and change your life. So I'm getting right up in your wallet. I must at least be next to your Visa card now. But God calls us to it. And the money that we have is used. Let's say at Volunteer Park, we spoke about what happened with people whose lives are changed. Sometimes during the week, we'll have people who come in here who are struggling to make ends meet. And because of your giving, we have a fund where we can give a Safeway card for people to go and buy groceries to eat. We have money where if people at Volunteer Park are going through a hard time, you know, we have checks and balances. We can give them to help them make ends meet for a time. And I'm challenged by it myself. This isn't me just like dumping on you while I do nothing. No, I'm challenged by it myself. Because what type of religion is worth anything if it does not affect your life? And that's why as Adventists, we have a very holistic view of God and religion. It's a religion that affects everything. It affects the wellness of our body and the health of our soul and of our wallets. And so God challenges each of us to manage our money wisely. A few words, then I'm done. So some of you may wonder what happens when you put money in the tray. This is, again, really detailed. But did you know that some of it is given to the Washington Conference? They disburse it. It goes to the union. It goes to the NAD. And you may not even know what any of that means. I apologize. It goes to places and people. Let's just do that. But some of your money actually help those refugees that I spoke about. It went through to ADRA, the Adventist Relief Agency, and they were able to take people to those places and give them money, give them food, give them water, and help rehabilitate them. It paid for nurses and for doctors to be able to give of their time to help these people. And so the money and the resources that God gives us, when we give it back to this church, it impacts lives. It makes a difference. And when we manage our money wisely, we are acting like God, and we are partnering with God to make our society better. That's the long and short of it. So I'm going to finish now, and I'm going to ask you in the week to come to spend some time with your spouse, with your checkbook, with your student account through your college or university, as you see them taking their pound of flesh. School just started this week. Rough times, I know, rough times. You thought you were rich because you got that loan, and now you're poor. But to spend some time to look at what God has given you and ask yourself a simple question. If God is challenging me and saying, prove me whether I will not pour out a blessing on you if you return 10% of what I own, 10% of the 100% I own. If you are not doing that, take God up on his challenge. And I'm going to be even more specific. Take God up on his challenge from now through to the end of the year. We're in October, November, and December. Take God up. God says, prove me. God says, give 10%, return 10% to me, and prove me not, and see if I will not pour out a blessing. For some of you, that's a step way too far. Way too far. 10%, no way. And so the next step for some of you may be to figure out how you can start to give on a regular basis, even if it's not 10%. Ask God how you can master your money and not let your money master you. Ask God how you can use your finances to be a tool of good and of healing, and to spread the news that Jesus is the hope of this world. Last week, I gave some tips. For some, it may mean cutting down on your grande venti. Have no idea what I'm talking about. Mocha latte with caramel sprinklings. No idea. Forgive me. And you probably don't drink that, right? Because you probably are like a real coffee snob if you do drink it. You don't drink Starbucks. You don't drink from the man. But you may want to make a decision this week to figure out, God, is there something that I can give to help move people forward in coming to know you, so that this church can be a place where we have a surplus and we can bless our community and our neighbors. So we can help buy winter coats for those people who are on Broadway sleeping at Cal Anderson rough. We don't need to penny pinch. But you need to be intentional about it. And so let me recap. For those who are not tithing and giving the 10% to God, I want you to take up God's challenge from now to the end of the year and challenge yourself. Sit at the kitchen table and see if you can do that for God. And for those who've never given, no matter how much or how little you are, say, by faith, God, I will give for the sake of your kingdom. Romans 8:32 tells us that God did not hold back anything from us. It says that if God so gave his Son, will he hold anything from us? That's crazy. What kind of lavish God is that? He says, listen, I gave you my Son. What more can I give? If you cannot trust me in your life, when I gave you my Son, an author says that all of heaven was emptied out in the gift of Jesus. If God gave that to us, Romans 8:32 says, how much more will I give you anything that you ask for? So this week, as we allow the gospel of Jesus Christ to pierce our life, as we move from being oranges that segment our money, our friends, our activities, our values, but we become juicy mangoes, where Christ is the center and dictates everything. I ask you, spend a few moments. Let God challenge you. Let the gospel confront you in your resources. I'm going to invite all of you to stand as we sing our closing hymn to end this service. And it's a hymn which is appropriate. It talks about God taking our life. And I hope that this is your prayer.